What's up everybody, and welcome back to the Project Reboot kitchen. Today in the kitchen, we're whipping up a delicious and juicy herb-encrusted roast paired with an amazingly flavorful red wine jus. Now this roast is unbelievably tasty, but perhaps the most unbelievable thing about it is the price. What I've got here today is an eye of round roast. I got mine trimmed with a nice cap of fat on the top, but other than that, it's a pretty lean cut of meat with a muscle structure very similar to the tenderloin, which is where we get filet mignon. But unlike filet mignon, this roast gets a lot of work and is typically tough and chewy. But as you all know, the antidote to chewy meat is to cook it low and slow, which is exactly what Sous Vide does best. So we're going to see if we can use a little bit of Sous Vide magic to transform this affordable roast into something you'd be proud to serve to a table full of guests. Now before we get started, if you're new here, it would mean the world to us if you'd subscribe so that we can bring you more delicious recipes. Now without further ado, let's do this thing. Roasts are typically the go-to entree for the holidays and really special occasions. The problem with them is that they're ridiculously expensive. A tenderloin roast can go for as much as $30 a pound. By contrast, I got this eye of round roast for just a bit over $4 a pound. Now at those prices, you could find something to celebrate every day of the week. Now that said, if you just stuck this roast in the oven for a couple of hours like a typical roast, there wouldn't be much cause for celebration. But with a little bit of modern day tech and a lot of time, we can turn this roast into something special. Alright, first things first, let's fill up the water tub where our roast will be spending the next several hours. I got this tub on Amazon, and it's been really useful for long cooks like this. It comes with a lid and a small hole for your sous vide circulator, so you don't lose too much moisture and evaporation during the cooking process. Now that being said, this one is a little obnoxiously large, so I'm thinking I'm going to get a smaller one sometime soon, which they also sell on Amazon. Once the tub is filled, I'll set my sous vide circulator to 130 degrees Fahrenheit, or around 55 degrees Celsius, and let it get to work bringing all that water to temperature. Now while that's doing its thing, it's time to prep the meat. I'm drizzling some avocado on this thick boy to give our seasoning something to stick to. Next, I'll start applying my rub generously on the outside of the roast. Here I've got a mixture of salt, pepper, garlic powder, and onion powder. Now it's important not to be shy with the seasoning here, as this is a thick roast and we need that flavor to really penetrate the meat. Penetrate is really kind of a gross word, but I guess it works in this context because as it cooks, that seasoning will form a brine that will gradually penetrate the meat and transfer some great flavor all throughout the roast. Anywho, to make sure you've got seasoning all over every inch of this bad boy, I find it useful to season the board and then give it a few light slams and rolls over the cutting board until it's thoroughly covered in seasoning. Now once you've got the roast nice and seasoned, it's time to put it in our vacuum sealer bag and seal that baby up. Now you technically don't need a vacuum sealer for sous vide, you can use just a regular Ziploc bag, but I'd recommend one for this purpose because of the long cook and the amount of liquid that we'll be left with at the end. Now if it helps, just think of all the money you'll be saving on roasts to help justify the investment. After we've got everything sealed up and ready to go, it's time to dip this guy in this nice warm bath and leave him there for 24 hours. Now after dreaming of steak all day, it's time to make ourselves a roast. Now before we take this roast out of its bath, we'll preheat the oven to 475 degrees Fahrenheit or 245 degrees Celsius and give it a chance to get warmed up. Then we'll take the roast out of its bath. Notice all of that liquid in the bag. Don't throw that away. We're going to be using it to make the most incredible jus. To save that liquid, get a large measuring cup and cut away just one corner of the vacuum sealed bag. Then pour out all of those amazing juices into the cup. Once you've got every drop, go ahead and take the roast out of the bag and dab it dry. Then we're going to take a pan and get it ripping hot so that we can get a nice sear on this bad boy. Now we'll put some oil in the pan, and once it starts smoking lightly, we're ready to sear. We'll place the roast in the pan with the fat cap down first, to give that fat some time to render and get some beautiful color on it. Then we'll use some gloves or a clean kitchen towel to apply pressure as we sear all the other sides of the roast. We're only going for color here, so try to keep it on for only about 1 minute per side. Now after you've got all the sides seared, let the roast rest for a bit, but don't wash your pan. There's some amazing flavors in there that we need to extract. We'll do that by throwing some rosemary and garlic into the pan, and then quickly following up by pouring our cooking liquids into the pan. Then we'll let that boil, bubble, and reduce for about 5 minutes. Once nearly all the liquid has evaporated and you've got a thick and viscous mixture like this in the pan, go ahead and hit it with about a 1/4 cup of red wine. Let that reduce until it looks almost the same as before, and then add about a cup of chicken stock. Use your spoon to make sure that you're bringing up all of that amazing flavor stuck to the bottom of the pan, and let everything reduce for just a minute or two to get all the flavors acquainted. Then remove the rosemary and garlic, and behold the king of steak dipping sauces. Now we'll turn our attention back to the roast. We'll take a couple of egg whites and whisk them vigorously until they become nice and frothy. Now I've got T-Rex forearms, so I recommend using an immersion blender or a hand mixer for this, but to each his own. Now once you've got something that looks like this, go ahead and start brushing it on every inch of the roast. This will serve as the glue for our rub, which is made of salt, pepper, and rosemary. I went light on the salt and pepper since we seasoned our roast prior to cooking, but a little more won't hurt. Once you've got everything nice and covered in that herb crust, go ahead and stick it back in your already preheated oven for up to 10 minutes at 475 degrees Fahrenheit. Now make sure you watch it so that the herbs don't burn. Remember, the whole thing is perfectly cooked and seared, so we're just looking for the egg white and herb crust to set here. After the time's up, remove your roast from the oven and it's time to dig in. You can see here we have an impossibly perfect cook. Everything is nice and pink throughout, and the meat is just glistening with all of those juices. As we cut in and take a bite, we're rewarded by amazingly tender and impossibly flavorful meat. That long cook time and generous seasoning really gave those flavors a chance to penetrate the roast. And it's even better when you dip it in this amazing jus. Scratch that, just smother it in that jus because it's that good. Now not only is this an amazing steaky tasting roast, but after it's been refrigerated, you can slice it thin and dip it in some hot jus to make the most amazing roast beef for sandwiches. It's perfect for the morning after a holiday or a special occasion. Well, that's all we've got for you this time, fam. Don't forget to like this video if you liked it, and leave us a comment if you try it. We love it when we can share the experience of cooking and learning with you all. Until next time, fam, keep it real.